I've been playing a lot of brand jungle lately and my teammates aren't too happy about it. Normally by giving them assurances in champ select that I'm a brand jungle veteran and that I'm not trolling, usually that's enough, but sometimes they get a little bit paranoid in game, so I just gotta try to play my best. Even the Thresh in this case was a little bit paranoid. Usually it's only one person. I always start with the leash from my bot side to get the best leash possible. If you are on the opposite side of the map, if you start on red buff, you will get a little bit more HP. It really doesn't matter though, since we'll be healing up across our camps. As you pass the wolf camp, just blast it with your W. The healing from your hunter talisman will give you back loads of HP. It's the same thing with the Raptor camp as well. As you saw, I was far below half HP after finishing Gromp. By running by the Wolves and Raptors and using my W, I am now up to full HP. So if Lee Sin does show up on my red buff, I'll be full HP and I'll be able to fight him. I've had a lot of people in the comments ask me how I don't always get invaded and get screwed over like that. This is one of the main ways. If you keep your HP up, the odds of you dying will be much lower. Not only that, but if you're also keeping watch every single game, you're leaving base on time, the odds of you dying to an initial invade are much lower as well. At the end of the day, no matter what champion you're playing, if you're constantly very low HP in your own jungle, or if you never keep watch, you will be very susceptible to dying from invades. After taking blue, Gromp, red, and Raptors, you should be around half HP and you should be using your refillable potions. Around this time, Scuttle will be spawning in, so you'll be there at perfect timing. It comes in at 3:15, so you want to make sure you're there no later than 5 or 6 seconds after it spawns. That way if the enemy jungler does go for it, you can take it. Try to smite the Scuttle Crab after you have it stunned to maximize your damage. Here I see Lee Sin ganking the mid lane and his blue buff is up, so I might as well take it before he gets here. Yes, I probably could wait for him and kill him whenever he does come for it, but I figured I could just kill him on his Gromp anyways. There's no reason to just sit around doing nothing. I do see him instead running towards the Scuttle Crab, which is very bad since I'm going to get the speed up. He doesn't take into account that I have double buffs and he doesn't have any buff, so I walk into him, slow him down with my red buff auto attack. I E and Q him after I do have him slowed with my red buff auto attacks, that way I don't miss my Q. If you can, always try to wait to use your W until after you have him stunned. Like you saw here, it made it very easy for me to land my W on him, and then I finish him off with my Q. TF has a massive HP advantage on me, so I have to try to keep my distance a bit and play around my spell cooldown. He is also popping corruption pots, which is giving him a healthy amount of HP. Here I didn't know if his flash was up, he locked in the gold card, so I just flashed away. I didn't want to risk him flash autoing me there. Now that I have him pinned with Thresh, I'm going to hold on to the bush and try not to throw out my spells too early. Here TF just juked back and forth for a while, so after I missed my Q, I held on to my W until Thresh could pressure his health bar far enough for me to comfortably land my skill shot. Do keep in mind, while I was fighting TF, he had the health advantage and corruption pot. I did see Thresh roaming mid, which is why I hung around, which looked weird if you didn't realize Thresh was coming. Here Thresh follows me to the Scuttle because I call it out. I have my smite to heal off of it. I push Lee Sin off. He foolishly steps up, and now I can get my E on him, get my red buff auto slows, and then I land my Q. Unfortunately, Thresh does kind of hook him out of my W. You do need to be careful on brand when you're playing with displacement champions, mainly Thresh and Pyke or Blitzcrank, when they are about to use their hook or they haven't used it yet. A lot of the time on brand, you need to hold on to your W because they'll yank them out of it all the time. They don't realize just how consistently you can land your stuns. I play with the Master GM Pyke main sometimes, Artifact, and it seems like every time I go to use my W on brand, he yanks him right out of it, so it's just something you really have to look for. After killing Lee Sin, I wanted to heal off the Raptors a bit and wait for TF to come back to lane. I have to wait for him to step up before I engage, so I hide off in the shadows for a bit before going in for the gank. Notice how I held on to my Q for a very long time, which didn't let TF walk backwards. He kind of just stood in place and kept walking forwards, and then I did end up using my Q slightly too early because I got impatient. Luckily, it was long enough for us to secure the kill, and it didn't matter too much in the end. On your first back on brand, you should really be looking to complete as much of your jungle item as possible and pick up boots of speed. In your runes, it is okay to go for the free boots and cooldown reduction. If the enemy team has a lot of one-shot bursts in CC, I prefer going for the free stopwatch and cooldown reduction instead. Lee Sin's in my jungle trying to catch back up. It's a common mistake junglers will make when they feel like they're behind and they feel very desperate. I ward over the wall, I tag him with my abilities, I stay very patient, I then come over the side, drop W, and then peg him with my E. As you can see, his red buff just spawned in. It was yellow, which means it'll spawn in 15 seconds or less. Lee Sin still hasn't spawned in yet, so I have time to take my Gromp and take my sweet time heading over there. I head over there using my Oracle lens along the way to make sure that I didn't walk over a ward, and also make sure he wasn't in the bush, because even if you're not in the bush yet, if you have your Oracle lens on, if someone's in there, it'll show you the shimmer of them, basically a big shadow. I had pretty good information going into this. Lee Sin still isn't here after like 10-15 seconds, and he already should have been on it, so instead I'm going to go straight to his Raptor camp, hit it with the Q, then E, then W to maximize my damage and get off my passive on the big one. Remember guys, your W does 25% more damage against targets that already have your flame passive on them, so if you want to get off the 3-parter onto an AoE camp like the Raptor camp, you're going to need to start it out with your Q first, then E, then W to maximize your AoE damage. While taking camps, I'm constantly looking around. I see the enemy bot lane is shoving up, so I'm going to head down there with Thrash. The enemies are hard engaging onto our Morgana, so we're in a perfect spot. I only opened up with my W since Zed was chasing, so it made it easy. It bounces onto the Sona. I finish her off with an EQ. I then proceed to chase down the Zed. I throw out a neutral W into the bush, figuring he would try to go backwards and juke it back towards us. Since he didn't have a great path to run away from us since our turret was cutting him off, that's the only reason why it made using my W prematurely okay. Lee Sin is low on level. I took his red buff and he's pathing towards his golem, so I figure he'll come over there. As I'm clearing the wave, I'm trying to maximize my E by hitting the minions with my Q first and spreading the damage. I could have stayed and helped Thresh out more with the turret, but I wanted the potential to try to kill this Lee Sin. If this was in higher elo, I wouldn't have bothered since Lee Sin was seeing me coming, but since this is lower elo, I figured I would take this cheeky opportunity to try to pick up a kill. In reality, since my ultimate was down and I'm sitting on 2k gold and below half HP, it was a really greedy option, particularly since the enemy bot lane was going to be back to lane soon after we'd killed them. In this game, since I have a lead, I'm not doing too much farming after level 6 in my own jungle. I'm primarily just taking my camps, maybe a Gromp here and there. In general, I'm trying to push out in the middle of the map since I know I can solo the Lee Sin. I know his blue buff's up, I took his red buff, there's a good chance he's going to be over here. When I see his blue buff isn't up, I figured he'd be on Gromp. Sure enough, he is. I drop a fat load right on his head, and he's gone. Look on the minimap, look at Twisted Fate, and look where he moves to. He moves to back bottom left towards my direction. So as I'm taking wolves, I'm thinking I need to get in this bush ASAP before he sees me. He does see me. He has really bad reaction times. I blue smite him, E him, and then smack him with the Q once he lines himself up against the wall. If he didn't line himself up against the wall, I was going to wait to use Q until he threw his gold card at me, because that would have temporarily held him still if he didn't move towards the wall and didn't try to hit me with his stun card. If you've managed to establish yourself a lead in the early and mid game, make sure you try to take neutral objectives like dragons and rift heralds whenever you do pick an enemy. So in this case, I killed Lee Sin in TF. It's obviously a great time to take it. If you're not trying to take neutral objectives when the opportunities present themselves, you'll have a lot of trouble closing out games, which is what a lot of people comment on in my videos about how they struggle to finish games when they are ahead. Something I do want to note is this game was actually terrible for me to pick Brand Jungle into. In my defense, I picked Brand Jungle before our bot lane, and I didn't realize we were going to have a Morgana Thresh bot lane, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But you don't want to be picking Brand Jungle if your team does not have at least one really good AD champion. Yes, we do have Renekton, but that doesn't really count. We either need an AD carry or 2 AD champions in general, because enemy is going to stack the crap out of magic resist, taking away a lot from my damage, at least in terms of orange stacking magic resist, since he also stacks health items as well and will negate most of your damage while you are playing Brand. As you can see, Lee Sin isn't out on the map. I have a big advantage. We can take Dragon regardless of if he shows up or not. I went from Rift Herald, passed through mid looking for a gank, straight into Dragon, and now I'm here at bot lane since I did just finish Dragon. It's a great opportunity. Peg Sona with the Q, hit Zed with the W, and at this point I lay the Herald and we can move on to the turret. Heralds do lay much faster now here in Season 10 than they did in Season 9. As my teammates are breaking the turret, I want to go in for a flank to catch any stragglers. I didn't expect there to be 2 people, but I did go into this knowing I have Hourglass and Ultimate. They do separate, which makes it hard for me to use my ulti. Lee Sin dashes over the wall really quick, so I end up in a weird spot where I just drop ultimate on Zed only, hit him with my Q to survive, and drop the Hourglass. I should have also hit him with my W while he was stunned before Hourglass, but I panicked a little bit there. Luckily, my teammates had my back and everything turned out okay. Once you establish a lead on Brand Jungle, the only way you'll really be dying is if you're being very, very clumsy and wasting your Q really soon, or if you're just wandering around with low health like I did here. You want to try to to avoid these situations because I just gave away 1,000 shutdown gold. Really bad. If you're ahead, don't get overly cocky because giving away that much gold on one death is exactly what the enemies need to get back into the game. I should have just backed and then moved back onto the map instead of risking it for the biscuit. If you're fighting multiple enemy targets, try to be as patient as you can be with your ultimate. Here, I don't just waste it on the Lee Sin, I tag him with my E first, he flashes, and it sets up a very nice engage for the Renekton. Now that Ornn is on top of me, I slosh my ult on top of him, and Blue and Gromp are here as well, so it bounces it onto them, and then they chain react, and Allah Akbar, the Ornn. He never had a chance. Sona runs up. I have no idea what Thresh was doing. I guess he was trying to help the Renekton, so Sona just kind of walked past him, and I died. Another mistake on my part. If I would just kept running and not try to turn around, I probably could have gotten away. This is why it's really important to take Relentless Hunter instead of Ravenous Hunter on Brand. That way you have the movement speed to chase people down into an ultimate chain combo. Drop the R, and it melts through them like butter. Lee Sin does use his shield, which takes away from its impressiveness, but the slow from my Rylai's and passive holds Sona still for us. Also, do keep in mind that the enemy team is stacking magic resist like crazy. All of them have at least one magic resist item minimum. If you want to see what I'm talking about, just check out this clip. If an enemy does have an overwhelming amount of MR stacked, particularly an adaptive helm, you'll notice your damage on Brand doesn't look like much of anything at all. I've hit Ornn with 2 or 3 spell combos at this point, 2 full passive procs, and he's really not going down at all. Thresh and Morgana have both been blasting him, and Thresh even went Executioners and Static Shiv, so we do have some damage behind it. Even with only 6 of his HP left, it takes me a full ultimate proc, passive proc, stun, and I still don't even kill Ornn, and I need help. I even have a Void Staff and Rabadon. This is why it's very important to not pick Brand when you already have a full AP team comp like I have, excluding Renekton. Luckily, the enemy team didn't have any other tanky champions on their team. They're all squishy. They did still build magic resist, but without the insane amount of HP that Ornn also has, they are still all very killable for me in a team fight scenario. If you do end up in a situation where there's someone on the enemy team who is unkillable for you, try to focus on killing their teammates instead and avoiding that person in fights. So unless you can pick off one of their teammates first or get off a good combo on their teammates in a fight, you're just not going to have a chance. If you were paying attention to this fight, I first killed Zed, then Lee Sin and Sona, saving the Ornn for last because I had absolutely zero hope of trying to kill him first or at all. I just had to focus on his teammates, try to spread my ultimate W and E on his teammates. As long as you have Rylai's like I have, you should be able to kite away from the super tank like I'm. As long as they get hit by one of your AoE spells, such as your W, E with passive, or your ultimate splash, you'll be moving so much faster than them that if you are moving properly, you should be able to stay fluid and mobile in fights. And that is going to wrap up this Brand jungle commentary guide. If you guys made it to the end of the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out with the YouTube algorithm tremendously. I do also read every single comment. Even if I don't have the time to respond to it, I do see every single one. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.
My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.